Greetings, I'm Les.
And I am Scandal.
And let's review a book together. So,
Whee!
at least a book preview. Anyway, so we are going to be talking about Winterwood, which I, Les, performed.
Yes.
And what sort of our thoughts on, the preview were. So this is a teen fiction / juvenile fiction. It sounds like it's pitched like a romance / suspense / not necessarily horror, but like scary kind of thing.
Right.
And it's written first person, which a lot of, like, for me, I have to say, most of the books that I've ever loved in my life have not been first person. And it actually took me a long time in my particular life to be exposed to a book written in the first person, because I was largely via my dad, exposed to classical fantasy fiction, which is not first person for the most part
Yeah,
at all.
no, not
Large epics are not usually written in first person.
No.
They can't be, but they aren't usually. So the first time I ran into a first person one, it was actually really jarring to me. Anyway, so this is first person. The protag didn't really grab me. All right, go ahead.
So, I guess for both of us, or at least mostly myself in this case, I know you might have similar feelings, but I'll just go off of me right now. I really did not care about this book introduction, really, at all. There were some vaguely interesting elements, I guess, about the fact of, you just don't go into the wood, and the wood is scary, and we're eventually going to find out why, but there was no particular, background details or anything. There's no character. I'm afraid, I'm going in the wood. I'm I don't care.
Okay.
So for me, just legitimately...
I suppose the only thing that I found really interesting about it, because it's really ambiguous what's going on. That basically the young woman's grandmother taught her all she knows, seemingly all she knows about magic and walking in the woods and being a shadow walker.
Right.
But also that her mother does it.
I'm the thing you should be afraid of.
Right? Yeah. But that it's not really clear at all whether she lives by herself in the woods or whether her mom lives there and she went out by herself, but that her grandmother used to live there. So it's indicated that her mom is still alive, but that it sounds like maybe her mom wasn't involved in her life at all, even though her mom seems to do really important things. I don't know. Anyway, so it was a little bit unusual, and only thing that really got me is walking into the wood felt like walking into another realm, which is, for me, I've always thought shadow walking / I don't know if I can use the term spirit walking, basically traveling into other planes of or awarenesses of reality.
Transitioning
has always been really interesting
yeah.
for me, whether it's moving into other states of consciousness or just moving into other physical planes. And it sounds like that's what the wood is, and I find that very interesting. But that's probably the most interesting thing I found about it. Otherwise, she felt like a very standard, teen female protagonist. She didn't describe herself, which I liked. And she didn't go into a lot of detail, describing what everybody else looked like either. So it wasn't I found a beautiful boy on the ground. He just had bright green eyes.
Right.
I was just say, and he was a corpse, except for he wasn't, And for herself, there was no great description of what she thinks of herself physically or anything like that. It was very into more about the contents of her as a person rather than her physical form,
which is really kind of interesting because I didn't really feel like there was much character there.
There genuinely,
wasn't a lot. It was very. That's the thing for me. I'm I understand it's just a preview, so you're gonna have to forgive me. But most of the time, with a lot of books, if they're not really super interesting in the first little bit, I really am that person for years, where I just be not interested, and I just put it down.
If the first chapter doesn't grab you, then you sort of just put it down. And I'm a lot of that person too. And so for me, reading through this, it was I couldn't think of any reason why I would specifically run and read this book, because I couldn't attach to the lead character in the sense that she didn't. I didn't know what any of her motivations were.
Right, unclear motivation.
Really, I when I have to break it down, I go she's going and she's doing this walking because her grandmother told her never miss a full moon no matter what. But also there was a little bit of dissonance in kind of an interesting way where she walks up the river. I assume because the snow is so deep everywhere else, but we never talk about the snow again. It snows so deep that it buries their mailbox, and she has to go out in it, and we never mention the snow ever again.
However, the silly thing about that is going, well, how high is your mailbox, honey?
Well, there's that. But beyond that, it was it wasn't really clear what her motivations were at all.
Right.
Why she was doing this, what she was hoping to find there. It was sometimes you find older things in the wood, but it wasn't necessarily that was important to anything.
Yeah, it's they're just sort of this is sort of an experience, and it just kind of happens, and you're just supposed
to do that. But you also need to
and...
do it. Never miss a full moon. Why? Go do this walking. Why?
Which in that sense makes it feel like a very classically where I would call it very boring, basically young adult or juvenile, fiction of just going, yeah, you just do things because nobody communicates in these books until the last necessary bone-crunching stupid moment because all adults are useless and don't do anything and won't help anyone and actually were never children themselves, apparently. Which
this book doesn't actually cover any of those things. The only adult we interact with at all sounds competent. She really does.
But the thing is why wouldn't you tell her why would you go into the forest? Well, you just can't ever miss it. Why not?
Well, see, that's not that she didn't tell our protag that. It's just that our protag didn't tell us that. Our protag tells us very, very little about her grandmother and basically just throws a couple of platitudes our way in reference to her memories about her grandmother. And so
it still didn't do anything.
But for me, I guess the reason I had a hard time connecting now that I'm just talking through it really was because I didn't know why she was doing anything she was doing. And even at the very end of the preview where she's like, I found him, I found the missing boy. She wasn't in there looking for him or didn't seem particularly concerned about him at all. It was just kind of awareness.
Abruptly, oh yeah.
There was this, across the lake, one of the boys went missing. And that's just an awareness. And then we don't talk about it at all. And then there's suddenly this, I found him. I found the missing boy. And going,
wait, what?
Okay.
There was somebody missing?
No, it was, for me, it was more like,
yeah.
So we care about that. What do you mean when you found him, you found the missing boy? Like, what's the weight or gravity or importance of this at all?
Well, and that's what I mean, of just being like, oh, you cared about that? We were supposed to care about that? Where'd that come from? Sort of thing. Like, there was a moment, too, where you were reading as well, where you mentioned going, running and my heart is beating and freak out, and then suddenly the next line is like, and then we're all back to normal, and just sort of casually
the author mentions
around. It's so weird.
The author mentions her heart a lot, in a lot of ways, like the protagonist's heart. All the time, like all of her emotions come right from her heart, which is one way to do things. But it was interesting to hear, like, in less than a chapter, like 6 different descriptions of, your heart clawing against your rib cage or pounding against your rib cage or climbing up into your throat, etc., etc., etc.
Except, I'm just sort of strolling along and having my experience.
But I wasn't able to connect to the emotional weight of it. So I would tend to say, if you like juvenile fiction and you are interested in the magical woods,
could be good.
If it's, and also since it's supposed to have that romance bent to it, you might like it. It does seem like it has a heavy like suspense mystery involved based on the description of it, but I didn't connect to any of it in the preview.
However, that also might not be true, so I would be careful with that, because if anybody's actually read a lot of books, you might realize actually that a lot of times summaries are written to try to fulfill what they think the audience that might be reading is looking for right now.
It's true. So summaries can be very misleading in that way. But so I would say the writing is fairly good. As far as just being solidly there, doesn't really repeat itself, doesn't have grammar problems.
Yeah.
The protag did have a fairly clear voice, though it was wild when suddenly she started cursing, like compared to the other stuff. Where it was just like, everything's fine, and then suddenly I'm just repeating, I'm just really upset.
I'm suddenly being explicatives everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, anyway, so it was kind of interesting that way. But I don't know if I could either recommend or deny this book, other than if you're interested in the premise, go ahead and give it a shot.
It feels like, honestly, a book, if I were to read it, it would be one of those books that I would kind of read because I didn't have much else to read. And I'd be like, okay, sure, it's here. Like, I am also that person that is willing to pick up a book from the library, read it, and then go, I will never read that again.
Yep.
And then never...
And when you read really quickly, then sometimes that's the way things work. So that's kind of my thoughts on the book. It really just didn't really stand out in any particular way. It didn't go super heavy on the romance right away, which was really nice, even though it claims it is sort of a romantic thing. I have to say, but I just couldn't connect to the main character at all.
And I guess that's kind of what we have. So I guess this has been Scandal.
And I have been Lies. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, have a good one. And if you like our stuff, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We are going to be trying to upload as many books as possible when we get around to them. We're hoping again soon to actually be doing some of our favorite books. Yes. So books that we are truly enthusiastic about and that we love. And if you've never read them, we hope that eventually you will then go and listen to those and be enthused and go and read the books we love to.
Yes, and if you're over here from our Let's Play channel, it is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves out there. Bye!